this 2-day program, we will be exposed in the different facets of compensation and benefits and how we can best utilize them to make sure that we achieve internal equity, market competitiveness, affordability, and alignment to our business strategies and ambitions. This course is for HR professionals who would like to gain better insights on how rewards and remuneration can be effective and yet affordable. Join me and the other HR professionals as we share our insights, experiences, and HR life's lessons about compensation and benefits. I am Vivian Cruz, your global training partner for Certificate in Compensation and Benefits program.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Trainers Lounge, the show where we talk about anything and everything about L&D. And of course, for today's episode, we have a new guest here to share his experiences and insights about a certain topic about L&D. Ayan. Well, we'll talk more about agile or design mentality or mindset in the L&D and how we can apply it and what are the advantages that we can get from it. But before we go to the discussion, of course, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channels. Also follow our Facebook page, that's CLDP Philippines. All of our previous episodes here at the Trainers Lounge are available there. You can also check us out on YouTube under Circological Group. Our Trainers Lounge playlist is there as well. And if you would like to just sit back and listen to our previous episode, we got you covered. We are also on Spotify. Yeah. So follow our pages and stay tuned for our future episodes. Well, without further ado, let's get to know who is our trainer for today. Our guest for today has 14 years of experience as an L&D professional. Currently, he is a senior manager and consultant for a U.S. bank, certified Scrum Master and a product owner. And outside of work, he loves spending time with his wife, dogs, and do volunteer work in their church. Of course, we are talking about Mr. Aldrin Gaduena. Ayan. There you go.
Hello.
Hello, Sir Aldrin.
Hello. Good afternoon, Kevin. Thank you for
Yeah.
having me.
Of course, thank you so much as well for taking the time to share your insights about our topic today. And speaking of which, this is kind of new, right? This the design thinking and agile mindset in L&D. I think I mixed them up earlier, but there you go.
Yeah,
So,
it's
but
all
yeah,
good. I mean,
it's actually a new concept, no, in the world of L&D. And by the way, for those who baka ma-confuse po kayo, so Sir Aldrin also goes by the name Ice. Yeah, but anyway, Sir Aldrin, how are you feeling today?
today, great. Today's Thursday, right? If I'm not mistaken, or is it Wednesday? I lose track of the day, but because I work at night. But yeah, overall, I'm good.
Oh, well, it was mentioned here that you work for a US bank, so I can only imagine graveyard or a mid-shift schedule. But yeah, thank you so much. Still, at least you were able to give us some of your time. Well, without further ado, let's go to our questions for today. Yeah. Well, first, we want to understand the concepts behind design thinking and agile. So, kung saan ba siya nanggaling? And we have
Mhm.
here the acronym VUCA. Yeah. So, what is VUCA environment, and how does it impact the learning and development landscape?
Right. I think, and I'm glad that we're starting off with that question. And that's the very reason the shift now is is highly encouraged more than ever because of what we call VUCA, or a VUCA environment. So that acronym stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and then ambiguous. In layman's term, or in my personal term, I just simply call it as a chaotic environment.
Mm.
Unlike before, probably when I started 10 years ago, 13 years ago, the things were very simple. The requirements are very straightforward. They give you a requirement, they give you ample time to produce it, and then
Mhm.
you deploy it. Nowadays, things change even in the middle of the process, and that change, oversimplifying it, is called VUCA. And now L&D practitioners need to be able to respond to these changes, especially from a design, development, and implementation standpoint. So that is VUCA in short.
Ayun. Well, it is an acronym, correct? Baka kasi
Yes.
malito din sila. Ayan. So, volatile? Ay, sorry. I think V stands for
Oh, it is volatile. So
volatile. Ayan.
V,
Oh,
yeah, V for volatile, and then U for uncertain, and then C for
ayun.
complex, and then A for ambiguous. You know how it is that some requirements they say that we need this training. For example, they need customer experience training now, and then suddenly 3 days after, the priorities shift because of, let's say, economical requirements, political
Mhm.
changes, landscape changes, and things of that nature. So. The question there is how quickly can we respond to those ever changing requirements. There are some businesses now that sometimes the data is not yet ready, so you're not quite sure what the requirement is. That falls under uncertain. And then sometimes the requirement is absolutely complex because it's very niche to a certain business, a certain requirement, and being able to consistently produce some
Mhm.
prototypes until such time that you really get to release a product that matches their requirement is one of the key differentiators of L&D practitioners now. And then my all-time favorite is ambiguous. This is the type wherein some requirements are mentioned in a very ambiguous way, such as we need to improve numbers, we need
Ayun.
to
Oh.
improve customer experience. But the question is, what exactly are we trying to do? So being in those very complicated and, like what I said, chaotic environment, realizing that this is now how the playing field looks like will allow us to be able to respond properly, deliver to the expectations, but more important, just like what any L&D practitioner would say, is that be able to actually deliver change, cost change, and deliver business value to to our partners, to our stakeholders.
And yeah, you mentioned that this is a fairly new concept. And how were you able to stumble upon this concept? Like, where did you find about it, or did you hear about it from some of your peers or colleagues?
Right. So it is fairly new. I think the L&D industry, or the learning and development industry, is
Mhm.
starting to embrace the concept. But really, the practice, it has been around for quite some time. It's been around
Mm.
for more than 10 years now. It started in 2011, especially the agile mindset, or the agile
Mhm.
development mindset. It started as a development approach for software. You know how it is that sometimes when softwares are developed, it takes a while, and sometimes
Mhm.
once the product is out, it's no longer needed. So
I see.
that gave birth to the agile mindset, and there's a lot of services that are like that, especially for us. One of the reasons I embraced the agile mindset and the design thinking approach is because I was once in that situation wherein they told me that the requirement is this. So for example, they said that, put together a customer experience training, and then I developed it for 2 months, and then once I was ready to deploy it, they said we no longer need it. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. And that's typically the ADI model, right? You go
Mhm.
through the four phases of ADI, 4 or 5 phases, and then, but hoping that at the end it's still
It will be
needed. But
delivered. Yes.
yeah, but the truth of the matter now is that there are some the businesses that we work with, let it be if you're doing independent consulting or you work for an organization like me, they're not going to wait for that problem to be fixed only by learning and development. They will try to fix that from their end as well. uh in simple terms, there is a great risk that whatever we're developing will actually no longer be needed by the time we finish it. Hence, I needed to find a way to be able to quickly churn results, get feedback, and be able to deploy what we call an MVP in Agile, which is the most viable product, or the minimum viable product, which means it's an entry prototype of what we're trying to produce. Have it tested immediately, get feedback, and then make adjustments along the way until such time we produce the product that the business is actually looking for.
I see. I see. There you go. Well, yeah. From the word itself, agile. Well, it doesn't have to be physical agility, but rather the skills or the capacity to adjust in sudden changes. I think that encompasses the general overview of agile. But I know for a fact it's not that easy. It's not that
Absolutely, yeah.
simple. It's not that simple. So let's dig a bit deeper with it. Now, we are going to talk about the design thinking now, and I think I want to know as well, what is it all about, design thinking, and how different is it from the usual ADDIE model that we use in L&D?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that question. And so the ADDIE model, I'll start off by saying that I'm a fan of the ADDIE model,
Mhm.
and it has been a proven framework. My only challenge there is that it's very straightforward, and that
Yeah.
the analysis phase of it, more often than not, is anchored on numbers, right? So people come in, they said we need
Mm.
this, and we take a look at the numbers, and then based on the numbers, based on the identified pain points, then we design and develop. Now, this is what makes design thinking a cut above that, because design thinking focuses on your target audience. It has three important components, or three important steps that I think are game changer as an L&D professional. Number one is what we call the empathy interviews. The name of the game now in the industry is not about who can produce a product or who can produce a training session. It's about producing what people actually need. So that's
Mhm.
the name of the game. And that's why you do your empathy interviews. You go beyond the numbers. You listen to the people that you consider as your stakeholders, your target audience. Really listen to what they really want, what they look for, what are their pain points, where do they struggle, what is the picture of success. Having an understanding not only from a numerical perspective, but actually from a human construct, from a human perspective, that provides a whole different perspective that will allow you to design a product that not only works but actually people appreciate. So that's number one. So it's the empathy interview. The second one in design thinking is what we call personas. Now, in ADDIE, oftentimes when we design and develop, we get techniques and approaches from multiple directions. Number one, we consider the adult learning theory, right? Okay, adults they need to have practice, they need to have assessment, they need to be able to do things on their own. So that's one. And then there are times that, oh, okay, from a training that I attended, we need to have games, it needs to be gamified. So you have a bunch of things that you want to add in design thinking. When you have a prototype, which is, or sorry, a persona, which is actually a representation, a mock-up of your target audience, you'll have a pretty good idea of what people are looking for, who are going to attend your training, who's possibly
Mhm.
going to sign up, what they expect, and then you can custom fit the training based on that persona. So once again, you're designing not only based on the number but your target audience. But my actual favorite here, and this is why they say, agile and design thinking is a hard switch, is because we are all culturally, especially our educational system, we all have been trained to produce and then get produce everything. It has to be a finished product, and then we get assessed, right? In design thinking, there is a prototyping step. So, which means to say, before
Mm.
you even launch your product, you will create a prototype, you'll get immediate feedback, and then from there, you can already make adjustments. And based on those feedback, you'll be able to respond to the ever changing requirements of the business. If things change while you were developing in the last 2 weeks, you can already account for that. And because it's a prototype, you haven't done a lot of things just yet. You haven't done your facilitator guide, you haven't done your decks, you haven't done your participant guides. So if you need to circle back, dial back, and redo some work, it's not going to be as frustrating because you're only dialing back a few steps. So not all work is wasted. And I'm going to wrap this up. And one of my constant frustration before is that, so I developed the deck. It's probably, let's say, 12 slides, or worst 25. And then I
Yes.
build the facilitator guide, I build the PG, and then I present to the business owners, and they go, we need to add this, we need to change this, we need to remove this, and so on and so forth. So I'll end up editing all three. So I edit the deck, I edit the facilitator guide, I edit the participant guide and other collaterals, which is plus more time, and that makes delivering products at a short period of time challenging, because we get feedback once we've done everything. But in design thinking and the agile mindset, what we're saying is that we get continuous feedback so we can iterate, and we can make changes midway. So I know that was a long answer. Took me a while to land that, but hopefully that answered the question between the difference between ADI and design thinking models.
Actually, what I kind of got interested with design thinking was when you mentioned the prototype, or testing the prototype before actually delivering what you built. Now, probably I would like to ask some questions about that. Like, when we say prototype, is it something like you're prepared to do it from start to beginning, or is it just certain phases of the training, things like that?
Oh, okay. So it could be both. It could be just one. But
Mm.
the general essence of a prototype is you're going to give your stakeholders an idea of what you're trying to do. So, for example, I think the in L&D, the most common prototype would be either just a presentation of your training outline and
Mhm.
a sequence of what you're trying to discuss in PowerPoint, but without the graphics, without
Mm.
anything that you probably will need to scrap or edit once you've received feedback. Prototyping, the main goal of that is actually fail early, fail fast, get feedback, and then iterate. Now, I guess the easiest way to really uh, appreciate this is when you think about products. Let's say if you're developing a new phone. If you're
Uh-huh.
developing a new phone, you're not going to develop the entire phone, a working phone, and then present it to get feedback,
That
because
one.
if they start giving you feedback, then you need to scrap the entire thing, right? And you've already probably spent so much time creating that phone.
Mhm.
The prototype version of that phone could be actually just a bunch of drawings, paper, and what you're explaining is that, if you touch this part of the phone, it opens up this window, and so on and so forth. So the prototype could be just a piece of paper, it could just be,
Mhm.
a mock-up presentation. The idea is to give your stakeholders a picture of what you're trying to accomplish, what you're trying to produce, get feedback, and then take that feedback home and then make adjustments along the way.
There you go. Okay. Well, just to clear up, maybe some of well, I got confused, but maybe some might think, oh, do I have to finish, or do I have to present everything and finish everything that I need as a prototype, or is it just like me describing what it's like? So I think it's leaning towards the
Mhm.
latter answer.
Yes, that's correct. So it's just
Mhm.
describing what you're trying to produce.
Mhm.
Probably a shorter version or a draft version, or just even a strawman version. So I
Mhm.
just leveled them. Strawman is absolutely like a level lower than a draft you're presenting to your stakeholders. So, for example, and just to create contrast, before how things are done, especially if you're following the ADI model, is that when you design and you develop and then you move to implementation, sometimes before you that step between developing and implementation, you need to already finish the product. You already have your materials ready, and then you present, right? And then
Mhm.
when you present, because it's already done, you get feedback, and now when you get feedback and you need to apply them, especially if they are major feedback, then your implementation time moves a little bit back because you need to account for the amount of changes you'll do. Now, in prototyping, even before you get to even before you get to the very final product, you're already trying to get feedback every step of the way. From a personal practice, what I do is that so they start with the requirement. They said, okay, we need to improve customer experience. And first, I'll do my empathy interviews, understand it a little bit more, and then I will the typical, you define the problem and then you come up with solutions. And as I ideate and come up with those solutions, that could be my first starting point. Here are the things that I have in mind. What do you have already? Do you think this is going to work? This is going to address? So that could be my first feedback point. That could be my first prototype, which is just a bunch of ideas. It's a list of ideas. And then once I've narrowed it down, I've accounted their feedback. Now I'll probably have a little bit more of a hard copy coming from ideas. I'll probably have now, okay, here's the training outline, and here's how it will look like from start to finish, which could be just phases, not even the deck. So I probably say, okay, phase one is I'm planning to do a pre-assessment, and then phase two, during training, they will have games, they will have storyboards, and so on and so forth. And then phase three could be post-training activities, and then so these are just, like a one pager PowerPoint, and then I get feedback again, I present that, and then the business or the leaders will come back and say, yeah, that sounds great. Then that's my criteria to move forward and start developing. And then as I produce something else, I get feedback again until such time that we finish the product. And by the time we finish the product, it's actually what they're looking for. So that's the beauty of design thinking. It's about getting immediate feedback from your target users, your stakeholders,
Mhm.
making sure that what you're producing is actually what they need. And that is that requires a lot of agility, just like what you said, both physically and actually mentally. So because you need to be presenting almost all the time.
I see, I see. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Well, you get to have, or you get to fix those holes as you go along the way, I suppose. And yeah, it might sound a bit tedious, but I think it helps with polishing up the final product of what you are trying to accomplish. Yes, should you use the design thinking method? All right. Well, thank you so much for that. Well, moving on now, we also talked about being agile in the L&D industry and adapting very well to changes. Now, how can we apply agile or agility in the learning and development profession?
Yeah, and that's a great question. So I'll start off by saying that agile is actually a mindset. So it's
Mm,
a mindset that is, number one, very hard to embrace. Simply because when we say we have an agile mindset, we are very responsive to change. We are also saying that whatever comes our way,
mhm.
we need to be able to respond to it accordingly, right? And the reason I'm saying that that's difficult is because, number one, we are creatures of habits and we don't like change. Naturally, that's just really how we're wired. So when things change, we oftentimes feel uncomfortable about it. So shifting to
Mhm.
the agile mindset, we're saying that, we love change, bring it on. So that's the
Mhm.
most difficult part. And the way it will be, I think the biggest contribution of having an agile mindset in the L&D space, I'd probably talk about career growth. Everyone probably knows and have heard, at the very least, the the book Who Moved My Cheese, right? And there are a lot of nuggets there, but one of the my key takeaways there is that, people that fail to change fast become outdated, or AKA you become Jurassic, right? So while having the agile mindset, or being comfortable with change, embracing volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous situation, seeing that as an opportunity to actually get better or deliver better products, while the rest is contemplating why the change is happening, people are stuck in that contemplation while you're already moving forward. So it already creates that separation. So while everyone is still contemplating, you've gone through the change curve, and that actually will help you from a career perspective. From a, I guess, from a practitioner perspective, like as a person, having an agile mindset really lowers down anxiety, stress, because we know for a fact that things will really change. So because
Mhm.
we expect the change to already happen, we already are equipped with the tools to respond to change. What really makes it difficult to embrace change is because sometimes we're just simply not equipped with the tools. When I was starting, when I was a new trainer, when change happens, it's very chaotic. I don't know how to go. I don't know what to feel about it. But this time
Mhm.
around, when change happens, oh, okay, then we'll use design thinking for this situation. Oh, okay, we'll use Scrum for this situation. Oh, we'll use Lean for this situation. So as you as you as you equip yourself with these tools, you become more and more equipped to handle these changes. So lesser stress, lesser anxiety. Ultimately, I would say, you become a good role model. Because when I was a new trainer, people would always say, it's scary to be a trainer because it seems like it's a very busy and very quote unquote toxic profession. And that's mainly,
Mhm.
people say that because they see you like lacking sleep, or probably stressed all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and if you're able to manage that, then you're really representing the industry very, very well, right? So I hope I don't look stressed today. So it kills the credibility, right? So
Yes, yes, yes. Well, you look good. Let's
oh,
get
thank
that
you.
out of the way. You look good. And well, I think what I love to add about what you said about agile mindset is that nothing is permanent, and the only thing that's permanent is change. There you go. If we are not ready for it, if we are not anticipating it, it might cause us a harder time to adapt to it or to adjust to it. Now, yes, applying agile mindset to your current workflow might be hard, especially if you like following certain orders. I mean, like
Correct.
from sequences to sequences, from orders or from templates or whatnot. And yeah, I think that's going to be quite something for you if you're not used to having to deal with changes. There you go. But yeah, and how does it really work if we want to train it for ourselves? Like,
Oh, okay.
if like admittedly we are afraid of change, or not, if not afraid, we are uncomfortable of change. How do we train ourselves to have this agile mindset? Would you happen
Wow.
to have some tips,
Yeah.
tricks?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's going to be the $1 million question. So how do you really, how do you really get into
Yeah.
that,
Mhm.
that practice? So number one, I think at the very top of my list is that we need to be in love with feedback, because the agile
Mm.
mindset, the design thinking principle, is about getting feedback early on. As I think it probably is culturally, or it could be us as human beings, we don't really like feedback, right? I would say that that's majority, or if not really like it, we're not comfortable, because oftentimes
Yeah.
when we say we're given feedback, it means that we did something wrong, and nobody wants to be wrong, right? Nobody wakes up in the morning and say, "Ha, hopefully today I get an escalation." So or I get a ticket driving, right? Nobody wants to be wrong. So get, being comfortable or being in love with feedback is going to be the first step. Always remember that as you get more feedback, the product that you're producing becomes more and more refined.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are in the middle of designing and people suddenly tell you, you get feedback that, you know what, we're actually switching to e-learning, then you can pivot and switch to e-learning design. But what if you're not comfortable with feedback and you continue designing an ILT, and then by the time you produce it and you're done with everything, they said, actually we need an e-learning now because we're all switching to self-paced. So then it's wasted time and effort, right? So be in love with feedback. I think that's the first one. Second is that I love this. I was reading this book very recently. It's things that that I should have known when I was 20. And one of the concepts there was, every problem is actually an opportunity. So it's
Mhm.
about seeing the opportunity in every problem. So when change happens, typically that could cause a problem. And any problem, if we see it as an opportunity, is going to help us change the perspective that problems are actually good. It means there is something for us to work on. What personally, from a career standpoint, when there are problems, it helps me, get ahead of everyone, because while everyone is contemplating about the problem, I'm already solving it. So that's second. And then third one, I would say, be in love with continuous learning, be in love with,
Mhm.
as
Mhm.
a learning and development professional. And I bet our audience are also going to say that this is me preaching to the choir, but yes, we need to be in love with learning, because having the right mindset is one thing, but equipping ourselves with the right tools will really take us a long way. Like what I said, agile mindset is okay, change is good, problems are good. VUCA environment is great mine for opportunities. But once it happens, that's a different ball game. You need to have tools to navigate yourself around it. Do you have a framework that you can bank on, like design thinking? Do you have, let's say, lean that you can bank on, and things of that nature? So continuously learn, equip yourself with tools, and I think you should be all set. So be in love with feedback, be in love with continuous learning,
Mhm.
continuously improve and evolve as an L&D practitioner.
There you go. I think the first one gets to me the most. Like, you need to have a love for feedbacks, but at the same time you don't have to think about them in a negative way, right? I think that's correct that we've had a bad impression about feedbacks. When we say feedback to persons or professionals, they would think that they found something wrong with what I did or with what I'm going to do, things like that. But yeah, feedback is there to actually help us improve. And if we actually remove the stigma of the fear from receiving feedbacks, I think we can get better results of what we are going to do next. And then I think I would like to comment with that because I am like that before. I am afraid of feedback. I get too tense thinking about, oh, what did they write about me? What did they write about what I did? Things like that. But yeah, but when I kind of learned that it's not gonna kill me. It's not the end of the world for me. It's not the end of my career. I started focusing on what I can do, so that when I receive this kind of feedback, the first thing that comes into my mind is what can I do about this? Not they failed. I did not meet their expectations. Things like that. I would rather just exhaust my energy towards what to do next rather than being hung up on what happened. There you go.
Right. Yeah, and I think, just to add to that,
Mhm.
that got me inspired. Got me reminded of one thing that I always tell my team before. Uh, the five love languages. Have you
Mhm.
heard about that? Yeah, I added a sixth one. So non-official, but I added a sixth one. I said feedback is actually a love language. You don't give people that you don't love feedback. If you think about
True.
it really, really deeply, if I don't care about someone, let's say a trainer or my boss, I'd rather just keep
Let
myself
them
shut and then see that person, fail. But
crash and burn.
but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but people give you feedback because they care about what you do. So from that perspective, and just to add it to what you said, because it's always two-way, you're correct. I would want to look at it from my perspective. How does this help me? And to your point, it's not gonna kill me, it's gonna help me improve. But from a sender's perspective, it's actually a love language. So when you think about it, you're correct, we need to change the stigma. So if the stigma, if the definition of feedback now is, it's a demonstration of love, then I think that changes the ball game very differently.
There you go. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, of course, there are going to be some adjustments from a person who would like to develop. or to apply design thinking in their L&D career. However, probably my last question for this one. Let's dig a bit deeper into it, looking at both sides of the coin. So, uh, what are the advantages and also
Oh, okay.
possible challenges? There you go, like the pros and the cons, as you will. What are the advantages and possible challenges of applying agile or agility in L&D?
Awesome. Right. So I'll start off by dialing back quickly. So
Mhm.
because the last thing I want to happen is for people to think that I don't like Adi, so or I go against it. I love it.
Mhm.
But there are those are two school of thoughts. If from my workspace, if the requirement is fixed and I know it's not gonna change, and
Mhm.
it's simple in nature, more often than not, I will do Adi. And
Mhm.
then if I know that the requirements change, and once again I operate in a VUCA environment, it's just that my organization is like that. More often than not, I use the agile mindset, which is a bunch of other tools like design thinking. So I think the major advantage of having an agile mindset is being able to really deliver a product that adds value to the business. And here's one of the things that I also talk about to my team, and one of my greater realizations as an L&D professional. There's a huge difference between an output
Mhm.
or an effort and an outcome. So there are instances that we do work on something and we spend so much time creating something for our organization, which is effort, but it does not translate to a business or an outcome that actually adds value. So it's very possible that you've spent so much time creating training, but it doesn't add value to the business because it's not exactly what they're looking for. So for those moments, for everyone who's watching and listening, wherein you design a product and they decided to scrap that training, that's what I'm talking about. They probably
Just
realize that it's
understood.
no longer a business need, and that's why it's only an effort. You spend time, you spend money, blood, sweat, and tears, but there's really no outcome. Now, how having an agile mindset ensures that the effort that we have is directly connected to a business outcome. So it ensures, not 100% of the time, but majority of the
Mhm.
time that whatever we deliver adds value to the business because we constantly get feedback from them telling us that this is what we need, this is what will help us, and we deliver based on those requirements. So I think that's a major advantage of having an agile
Mhm.
mindset.
Well, I think also it lets you develop your, not just for the L&D profession, I say, but for the person itself. You get to exercise your mind. You get to discover more things. You get to develop problem solving skills as well, right? Because you get to look into different situations in not a fast pace, but rather at a glance.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, absolutely.
I think one of the things that I love about Agile as well is being able to face a problem without prior knowledge about it. Well, worst case scenario, it is is you don't have any background about it, then you have to adjust for it. For example, not knowing your uh, the decisions made that they don't know sorry, they no longer need the training that they asked you a few months ago or a few weeks ago. Then what do you do with it, or how can you make sure that you anticipate future changes or future challenges as well?
Yeah, very well said. That's exactly why we want to constantly listen to our stakeholders, constantly get feedback
Mhm.
from them, and just to circle back to that point that you said that there are times that the requirements that come to us we absolutely don't know anything about it, and that happens, I'd say, 50% of the time or even more. So this is where design thinking comes in really really handy. So the one of the phases of design thinking, and forgive me for forgetting to mention this, but the phases of design thinking actually starts with empathize, right? And then
And
so that's understanding the requirements, and then the
mhm,
second is defining what the problem is, and then ideating for solutions, and then prototyping, and then testing. Now in the ideate phase, this is when you actually bring in experts. So design thinking also is a call for collaboration. It's a call for teamwork. It's also a call for leveraging what's already existing. So one of the classes that I taught, design thinking, and one of the ideation tactics that they applied is actually leveraging a working idea from an existing company, like something that you can Google. For example, the problem was, how do we how do we improve, let's say, customer service? And then they looked at what works for Starbucks, what works for, let's say, AT&T, what works for other companies. They listed those ideas, and then they built on those ideas. So yeah, I probably don't know how to improve customer experience, but because I have, Google with me, or I have people that I can bring in as experts, then I can continuously generate ideas, or ideate as what we call. And then once we
mhm,
have a pretty solid idea, then we move to prototyping, which is what
prototyping.
we talked
Yeah.
about earlier, and then testing in order to get feedback immediately.
And once everything's clear, you have yourself a training
Yes.
program. There you go. Well, now let's go to the other side of things. Some challenges. There you go. Like
Oh,
in your
yeah.
experience, what are some of the common challenges that you've encountered or other people encountered when you try to apply agile or agility in
Okay.
the L&D industry?
Right. So, number one, I think it's the industry. No, kidding aside, but the having an agile approach typically requires that it has a backing of the organization. So, which means culturally,
Mhm.
the organization also needs to embrace agility, because it's very possible that you work with several teams that I am doing agile, but the rest they want to do something else. So that becomes one of the major challenges. And that's why agile transformation is easier said than done, because it's
Mhm.
more cultural than anything else. And we all know that changing culture is not an easy feat, right? So that's number one. Second is that you mentioned it earlier. You were right on the money when you said that a lot of people actually like things doing in certain sequences.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
agile is not a sequence. It's you're moving up and down. You're more
Mhm.
moving sideways and
Definitely,
whatnot,
definitely.
right? And that could be very confusing for a lot of people, or
Mhm.
even daunting or scary. That's why they don't even want to try it to begin with. And that's why, the agile concept and everything else has generated certain skills that will help organize those things. In the case in point, when you did my introduction earlier, you mentioned about an agile scrum master and a product owner. Those are two specific roles that are designed to operate in an agile environment, to keep everyone sane, to keep the project moving, to keep any
Yes.
development initiatives, at pace, and everyone's on the same page. So despite all the changes, the requirements coming in multiple directions, people don't get lost, because there are specific roles that can help, or that can aid that situation. So I think those are the two major challenges.
Will it also? I'm just trying to imagine it. Will it also cause some uh, unnecessary usage of effort? Well, what am I
Oh.
trying to say? Like, for example, since we're trying to deal with a lot of things, or we were trying to deal with new challenges every time, would it cause much more fatigue to the person? Things like that.
Oh, okay. So, the I guess the short answer to that question will be, it does it does consume energy.
Hmm.
But I think from a personal experience perspective, it actually reinvigorates the team as the team gets into the process. And the reason behind that is because you already are able to celebrate small wins. So, for example, in a full development approach, which is the old approach, you only get to celebrate once the proposal is
Program
approved.
is done.
Like the
Yeah.
entire thing, right? Right. When everything's done, when the L1s are in, the L4s are in, that's when when you get to celebrate. But in the agile mindset, the moment that your ideas are presented and they get approved, that's already a small win. So one of the major elements of an agile team is celebrating small wins. So those celebrations will allow you to reinvigorate the team in certain points, because burnout factor is managed. You don't need to wait 2 3 months or even 90 days or 120 days before you get to see the results and then celebrate. You celebrate in certain milestones, you celebrate in certain wins, regardless of how big or how small they are. So from a physical effort, I think it's still going to be there, but you'd absolutely be reinvigorated as you celebrate those small wins. Mm.
There you go. Well, that sounds actually nice. Have Instead of having to deal with the project for a long time and just waiting for that sweet release at the end, you get to celebrate
Yeah.
your steps along the way. I think I would rather have the latter than the first
Right,
one.
yeah. And I think in our team, because there are a lot of concepts, and what I like about the agile mindset is that it also leverages on people's strengths. So, for example,
Mm.
I personally am not a good ideator. I am an activator. So based on Strengths Finder, I am an
Mhm.
analytic person. I like looking at numbers, but coming up with an idea out of thin air, that's not my cup of tea. But I have a teammate who's very good at that. Like, you give him a one liner problem statement or an idea and he has like tons already. So we also get to celebrate individual brilliance. So let's say what we're presenting now is just a set of ideas that we want to implement, and once the business approves it or our stakeholders approve it, then we can celebrate not only that small success, but we can celebrate the small brilliance or the individual brilliance of our teammate. And then when we move to the next phase, then the people that are good at designing and development, the ones that are good in prototyping, then get celebrated. So I think that's how it also reinvigorates the team as a whole.
There you go.
Mhm.
So I think for our viewers out there, this might be your hint that design thinking or agile in your team might be a good way, or it might be a refreshing way to do things
Mhm.
for a change. There you go. Well, that's all the question I have. But do you have some final tips or some final words to our audiences?
Right. So I guess as a somewhat like a closing remark is
Mhm.
that I've always been, fascinated by the story of Nokia. Just out of curiosity, Sir Kevin, what was your last Nokia phone?
That was, that was
too,
in
too,
2000.
too long, too far
That
back to
was cool.
remember.
Yeah, yeah. That was in 2000, and I want to say 2012. I was in college. I was in college and Nokia's were out of the way, but I did buy a 3210 because
3210. Okay.
I like the novelty idea of having a brick phone in the world of smartphones.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's definitely a good way to also not lose battery. so, so I guess, well, I'm starting with that because I'm not sure if a lot of people are aware, but of the story of Nokia. But I'm pretty sure everyone will agree that if I say that one point in time Nokia was an empire, it
Yes.
was even bigger than Apple. I would be blasphemous by saying it was even bigger than Apple one point in time. I'd say, especially if you have a Finland Nokia phone, right? So that was the thing. It has to be Finland, but suddenly they're gone. I mean, suddenly they just disappear, and they were kind of like Apple. They were releasing models one
After
after the
another, yeah.
other and really at the leading edge of technology and innovation. So the biggest question was what really happened there. And the CEO of Nokia, one of its former CEOs, answered that question by saying that Nokia didn't do anything wrong. They just failed to change. And when I heard that story, actually I asked myself, as an L&D practitioner, am I following the path of Nokia by refusing to change, by refusing to embrace what the new industry standards are now, by continuously being scared of, let's say, the VUCA environment and what it offers. And I think that's that's my encouragement for everyone. I know in the industry we are all learners, but we do have our hesitations for trying something new. uh, but my encouragement is not to be Nokia. It's better to try something new and fail, because when you fail you learn, and as what they always say, the quotable quotes, the tweetable tweets, we start living when we stop, we stop living when we stop learning. So let's continue to live, let's continue to evolve, let's use Nokia as a good point of reference, why change is good, why embracing change is good, why trying new things out is actually good.
There you go. Wow. Yeah, actually, that's a good story. And well, that's all for our topic. Well, Sir Aldrin, thank you so much. Anything to share to promote from your end?
Uh, well, I would want to say like and subscribe, but I don't have that. But anyone, just in case you want to be connected, or anyone would like
Mhm.
to be connected in LinkedIn, it's Aldrin Gaduena. Would love to connect,
Mm.
and exchange ideas. I love exchanging ideas, best practices. It's just a simple, personal page. But let's keep in touch. Let's keep connected, and would love to, have meaningful discussions similar to this one.
All right, thank you so much again, Mr. Aldrin Gaduena, our guest in design thinking and agile mindset in the L&D industry. Thank you so much, Sir Aldrin, and hope to have you again in the show. Maybe we can find another topic that we can discuss and share to our audiences.
Likewise, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be given this opportunity. I think we talked about that offline, and would love a second stint. And yeah, let's think about another
New
topic,
topic.
and
Yeah, there you
yeah, and
go.
we'll take it from there. The pleasure and the honor is mine. Appreciate the platform. So hopefully our viewers did learn a thing or two from the discussion. If you have any clarifications or questions, hit me up in LinkedIn, and I'll be glad to answer questions there.
All right. Well, bye for now and keep safe, Sir Aldrin.
You do the same. Alrighty. Bye bye.
And again, that was Mr. Aldrin Gaduena talking about design thinking and agile mindset in the L&D industry. Well, yeah, change can be scary sometimes. It can, give us a bit of a uh, uncomfortable feeling or anxiety. But here's the thing: change is constant, and change will happen whether we like it or not. And there's nothing wrong with sticking with what you know, but at the same time we should also have another eye into the change or into the future and what it can hold for us and what can change from it. So there you go. And if you want to know more or if you want to talk about design thinking and agile mindset, you can reach out to Mr. Aldrin Gaduena on his social media accounts. And of course, for us here at the Trainers Lounge, make sure to like, subscribe, and follow our pages. And if you want to check more of our episodes, go to our social media pages as well. Well, that's it for the show that talks about everything and anything about L&D. This is the Trainers Lounge. I'm Kevin. See you again next time. Bye for now.